Good morning again, all my friends in YouTube land. I'm Chris and welcome to the Wooden Workshop. Last time we waxed all the pieces for the custom coat rack I'm making, and today's the exciting day. Today's the day we begin assembly. Let's go. So, assembly time, eh? Looking forward to this. So for this I have a driver with a Torx bit fitted because they're Torx screws, drill with a 3mm wood bit, and my 400mm, not 400mm, that's very long, isn't it, 40mm screws, quite long enough, 50mm screws, sorry, 4mm 50mm long. So first thing we do is we set up the pieces as they will be in life, as it were. Now I decided this one is going to be I think the very top. No, this one's going to be this shelf because it's got that funny bit on it. I know I made sure the funny bit was waxed, but I decided I don't want to see it. So that's going to go in there very beautifully, and then my divider piece will fit in like that. I will have to measure to get that dead center, of course. Then that piece will go on top, and smiley side out. That one goes there, that one goes there. Now, pre-drilling. I used to pre-drill all my items before I even sanded them, but then I found that there's a chance that errors creep in, and errors creeping in are never good. So what I normally do now is I sort of drill it live. So I'll flap those bits down, take that over there, and that over there, and that over there. First thing I'm going to do is attach the sides to the base. So for that, we make sure everything's nice and straight. We line up the piece where it's going to go with the bottom matching nicely, and then we work out where the drill holes are going to go. So one is going to go there. It's nice and halfway up that piece. We drill through, and then we stop drilling through, and then I want the next screw to go into this bit here, which is a bit trickier. So I line it up best I can, bring it up a little bit so it's going into the wood and not into somewhere bizarre, drill it, a nice slow drill bit so I've got plenty of control. See very little breakout on this side. I don't tend to countersink the holes. Again, I used to countersink the holes every time, but actually the screws countersink themselves and they make a far neater hole to fill in later. So we put the screws in place ready. Now what we don't want to happen at this stage is for anything to split. I don't put this too near the end because it might split this piece, and I don't put it too near the bottom of this one in case it splits that one. So I hold that firmly in place like so. Yeah, that's very firmly, Chris, it slid all over the place. So that's firmly in place, nicely lined up at the bottom. Then I start this screw. Start it very slowly to start with. Then, once it's in, I go for it. And as you can see, the screw head has buried itself in the wood. I don't know if you can see that, I'll show you there. The screw head has buried itself in the wood. That gives us a little hole, a nice neat round hole to fill later. So, keep these all on one piece of the worktop. There's a little join here. They are straight and flat, but why take the risk? I can then drive the other one in without too much slowness and ceremony, actually. There we go. Again, it's just sunk itself in. That's exactly what we want. It hasn't split anything, so that's good. We like that. Then the other end, same idea. Smiley side out, yep, So we line up the position of where it's going to be, and then we can drill would be useful, drill through about here to get, I don't really want a sloopy hole. Now I could use the bench drill for this, but with these units I find it's easier to just use the normal drill and be done with it. I will show you projects later where the bench drill is really necessary. So again, here, line up with the end like that, drill through. I can see where the drill met here, and I know that's a good place. So then I pop the screws in. Now so far, of course, there's been a lot going on with this unit. We've had all the cutting, the sanding, the waxing. A lot of prep goes into this, and this is the exciting bit, of course. So I hold that in place nicely, and then I drive the screw in to start with. Gently to start with, and then with more going for it, let the screw countersink itself, and then making sure we're all on one board and there's no rocking, which there isn't. We can then go for it with this one. Again, there was no splitting that time, which is good. Everything is perfectly intact. Tiny gap at the bottom there, so I will drive that one in a tiny bit further, just to try to close the tiny gap that appeared. There you go, it's gone now. So make sure there are no tiny gaps. Doesn't really matter, but I don't like them being tiny gaps. Just my choice. So that's that bit done. Now we have the shelf. The shelf, of course, tucks into that groove there, like so. There we go. Now for this, right angles are hugely important. So I use a right angle measurer there. There we go, that's nicely in place. And then again, a drill by sight. Now the top one has to go quite near the edge of this side piece. And then the lower one there we go. Then I'll take two screws again. I could probably get away with 40mm screws here. The wood is 20mm thick. 40mm screws would do a grand job. I just like the extra security of the 50mm. Now, do you remember way back in the dawn of time, when we were talking about the smiley wood, I said that when we put the screw in, it would pull the wood straight. So here's the, hopefully, here is the proof that that is what happens. So that's nicely squeezed. Whoops. So it's now in, so we can release the right angle, and we really need to drive this through. Oh, it didn't pull in. Didn't pull in that much. So we'll just try again. A bit of split out now. Never mind. We can deal with that. So it doesn't seem to want to pull in, does it? Never mind. It'll be okay. It didn't want to pull in, and we've got all this flake out here, but we can cover that up. That won't be a problem, I promise.
The problem with filming these videos as I make them and not rehearsing or anything is that sometimes things go a bit awry. Now what happened here was that the side piece did not bend in the way I thought it was going to, the way it usually does. I think it's possibly because either that particular piece of wood was a little bit softer than usual, or because the screw was specifically a countersinking screw. So the first time it encountered resistance, instead of pushing, it just burrowed in. So what you see me doing here is lots of tweaking and jiggery pokery and taking things out and putting things back in again, and then ultimately using my body weight to force the piece back into place. I have since bought myself a long clamp that I can use to clamp the shelf together, so that next time I come across this problem I don't then spend 10 minutes trying to sort it out. But it did get sorted. It does look okay, and yeah, let's return to the main action, shall we?
Next we drill through the back to put that shelf on. So just a couple of screws will do this. One there and one there. Now for these I don't use the massive screws. For these I can use shorter screws. I'll use 40s. Let's change my bit over. So I put a normal screw bit in, normal Phillips bit. There we go. And then we take one screw and we drive it through. Again, we'll let it make its own little hole. There you go. There may be a few of you out there who are thinking, actually Chris, you've just shown us how you fluff it up. But actually that's part of it. Part of making stuff is making mistakes. It's going to happen. So that is nice and solidly in place now, with enough room in there for the tiles. Next stage is to add the divider. Now the divider is a tricky one. It has to be central. Obviously it has to be central, and because of the way the carpenter's filler works, I only really want one hole here. So actually what I'm going to do is attach the divider to the top shelf first. Now which side do I want visible? Because you will be able to see this when it's up, of course. So I think I'll go for the rougher side, the bumpier side, because it looks nicer. So we measure. So that's 60.5. So 30.25 is where we go to. Now, if this is the front of the shelf, we want that to attach there. But we want to be able to get at the screws. In fact, that won't be a problem because this one's on top. So 30.25, I am going to drill it just here, not too near the front. Not too near the front, because then you run the risk of splitting. But also not too far in, because you want the screws to be able to pull any errant bits of wood into place. So there we go. So now we've started our drill, we can drill through. And on this this one. So drill through. Very little split out on the back. So now I'm going to use again the 40s. I like to use the 50s on the sides there because they are very much structural. These on the other hand are, rather than being structural, they're just holding it together, if that makes any sense. So this was the back side. So I put the 40mm screws in there. I give them a little initial drive. That one doesn't actually have a... oh, hang on, these are the wrong screws. These are the Torx. Where's the 40s that I got out? I got two 40s out, didn't I? You saw me do that. Where did I put them? Oh, never mind. I'll get some more. I'll find them later. I'll tread on them later, actually. So, first 40. Get started. Like so. Second 40, get started. Like so. Then I pop my piece there. Like so. Lots of moving things out of the way here. So that's going there. That's beautiful. Then I'm going to use the right angle measure to hold it in place while I screw that first one in. So making sure it is at a right angle. So that is right angled. Then make sure it's right angled that way. Yep, so that's right angled front to back. Swing that way. So that's in place now. Let it bury itself, and now right angle there, right angle there. That is lovely. So now this piece needs to be attached to the rest of it. There we go, like that. So I think what I'm going to do first is attach. Yeah, I'm going to have to attach that, aren't I? So, if any right angle error has crept in here, which it has a tiny bit, I can do that. So now it is correct. I know it's centered because this piece fits, and I'm going to use one drill hole here, just the one. And again, 40mm. There is lots of rocking and rolling here. So we make sure that is right angled. That is secure within the frame. So then we go. It's buried itself. We have right angles where we need right angles. Yep, we do. See? So now the last bit is attaching the top. Now, top wants to wiggle a bit. It does want to wiggle. Not happy that it wants to wiggle. There's a little bit of give on there, you see. So let's just tighten that one up. There you go. And we'll tighten that one up as well over here. There you go. Still a little bit of wiggle, but not much. So now we need to make sure this top shelf is level. So we'll do that, and we'll use our trusty level. Straight as, look, lovely. So now we need to fix the top board into place. So I'm going to start by drilling a hole right here. Gently drilling through, and using a 40mm we'll secure this. Let's drive it in a little bit first. There we go. Now we have the level. I know my bench is level, as I said before. It's about the only thing there is, so I know that's nice and level. So now I can drive that screw right through. There's no gap, that's perfect. Then I'm going to do the, let's see, it doesn't look very steady that way. Oh, it's not very steady anyway, is it? Oh, that's okay actually. So now I'm going to do diagonally opposite corner. I do like to do diagonally opposite corners. So diagonally opposite corner is here. .40mm screw. Pull it in with my thumb. No, never mind. Put it through. There you go. And that's beautifully in. Just make sure we have nice and level. Then I'm going to drill the other hole at the other end. That is all nice and steady and stable, isn't it? So I'm going to put a hole here. To allow me to put the screw through. As you've seen, this bit of the actual assembly can be a little bit hairy sometimes. You know, a little bit, oh, is this going to work? Because at the end of the day we are dealing once again with reclaimed wood, and straight are not necessarily two words that go together very well. So this should be the last screw. There we go. So there we have our unit assembled. All the wood put together, all nice and sturdy, very sturdy. When it's against the wall it'll be perfectly flat, there's no rocking there. It has got a bit dusty, we can deal with that, that's not a problem. And the next stage is to fill in all these unpleasant holes. We do that using carpenter's filler, which I shall make right now. Okay then, carpenter's filler time. We have glue, we have sawdust, and that's all we need. Now the mouth of my glue thing clogged up a long time ago. So, dollop of wood glue. So I'm going to give you a bit of a wobble there, sorry. Dollop of wood glue. Eventually. There we go. Nice dollop, like that. And then we mix in sawdust. Using a very highly technical lolly stick. Now don't panic, I haven't been eating thousands of ice lollies. You can get these from anywhere, craft places. I think I got these from the Works, I think, possibly. Nice big packet for £1. Not bad at all. So I hate the word quid. Nice big packet for £1. There we go. Mix in the wood glue like that. As you can see, there's plenty of scope for some more, not that one, for some more sawdust. The idea here is to make a very thick paste, and the glue in the paste, of course, holds the filler in place, and the sawdust is wood, basically. So when you've waxed, when it's dried and you've sanded it down, it is able to take a little bit of wax. It will be a little lighter than other areas, but it will take the wax. So there we go. That's probably a little bit sawdusty, really, but it will be fine. So that's mixed. So now we apply it. So here's my unit. I'm going to start on the back. We have 2 screw holes. I know these won't be seen, but I still like to fill them. So we get a little bit of filler on the lolly stick. We smooth it into the hole like that. We try to remain flush with the surface, because it can be a bit of a what's it to smooth off afterwards. We do smooth it off afterwards, but it can be a bit tricky if you've gone over too much. Then I'm going to do these 2 on the top, because they're here. A little bit of filler, push it into the hole. That's not deep enough, clearly, so we get a little bit more, push it into the hole. Not quite flush yet. A little bit more, push it into the hole. Try to keep it as flush as we can. There we go. Okay, so next one, put filler in the hole, a bit more filler in the hole, press it down, smooth it down. There you go, that's nice and smooth and in and done. Now we'll do that little hole there, which holds the partition in place. So again, push it in just to fill the hole. We're not aiming for a big bulge that then takes ages to sand down. We're aiming for a nice flat join. Can use your finger just to squidge it, get that bit off because it's not in the hole, get that bit off because it's not in the hole. There you go, so that's filled in nicely. Then we have the sides. Of course there's 4 holes on each side. Some of these have had a little bit of tear out from where I had to adjust screws, but that doesn't matter at all. It really doesn't. It won't affect the final quality at all. So we've pushed the filler into the hole like that. There we go, that's done. And on this one we push the filler into the hole like so. A little bit of a extra bit. Let's get it fairly flat. There we go. Oh, it's a splinter that wants to come off. Yes, it is. That's gone now. That's smoothed in. These will all be re-waxed, so little bits like that will get their own wax back won't be a problem. And then this one, wax is pushed in, not wax, filler is pushed in. Nice and finger flattened. A little bit more in that one actually, because that's a bit concave. There we go. And then 1, 2, 3, 4 over here. I'm going to use the other end of my lolly stick now, because the other end has become rather sticky. So a nice little ball, we'll put it into that hole there. That's gone right in. That one's gone right in. And that one's gone right in. But it is now smooth. And then down here, push the filler in. Yeah, see? Applies quite nicely. And then, I'll put too much on there. This one. Push the filler in. Straighten the filler up. Push it off around the edges a bit, we don't need that. That will be absolutely lovely. And then that side's all done now, look, all filled in. And then we just go round here to do the same on this end. So push the filler into the hole, gets a smooth, that's done. And this one, push the filler into the hole, get it nice and smooth, done. Now you will see, you can tell already, can't you, I've made far too much filler, but better to make too much than not enough. It is only wood glue and sawdust after all. So push the filler in, push it down, smooth it off, get rid of those bits around the edge because they're not useful. There we go. And then 2 more. These are quite deep, so we push the filler down into the hole. And we try and take off the filler that isn't needed. There you go. And last one, go back to the other end of the lolly stick. Could use a new lolly stick, but I've only got 1 hole left, so I'm not going to do that. So push it into the hole, smooth it around the hole, dust it around the hole. There we go. So we have all the holes filled on this end, you can see. We have these holes on the back filled. I have an eBay notification. We have that hole there filled. We have those holes there filled. And we have 2 holes on the top filled. So next stage now is basically, oh dear, I've got a bit of filler there. It will sand off and I'll re-wax that little piece, that'll be fine. So now we have the unit assembled, filled. It's very dusty. Please don't worry about the dustiness, it will all come off. It will all come off. It won't affect the finish because the wax has had plenty of time to dry. So next stage will be to sand those little bits of filler and re-wax, rebuff, re-wax, rebuff until we've got the final finish. Then we can do the tiles and stuff. So for now, all we can do is leave it, let it dry, and come back to it later. So it's now several hours later, and the carpenter's filler has dried beautifully. So what I need to do now is sand the filler. It's a little bit rough, so I need to sand it down just to give a smooth surface. So for that, I'm going to use little pieces of 150. I'm not going to use the whole sheet because we don't need the whole sheet. So I'm going to use little pieces of 150 like that, just secured to the front, to the nose of the sander. So I'll start with this little one that's on its own. So we'll just rub the filler with the nose of the sander, and you can see it's smoothed down. It has taken a little bit of the wax away, but that's why we're going to go over and wax them again. And it's down to a smooth surface, which is just what we need. So we carry on doing that, really.
So I thought I'd speed you through this bit. It's just sanding the filler all the time. There was a time when I would not wax any surface that was going to be filled at all. That's what I was pointing out here. But actually it doesn't make much difference. You can still get a decent finish waxing over the sanded plugs. And it means you can get all the waxing done in one go. So just finish off and then return you to the fun.
See, it's ever so quick. We end up with a lovely smooth surface that's ready to be re-waxed. And because I was careful here about how much I put in, it hasn't really disrupted the lovely ridginess of the wood. So just these ones at the end to do. And again, you don't need me to show you this in real time. It's just a quick sanding over and then dusting the whole lot with my hands just to make sure I've got all the dust off so it sticks all over my hands. And then once that is all done, dusty, 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 gosh, aren't these hands quick? That's lovely. Okay, so now let's carry on with me talking for real. So the only thing left to do now is to re-wax these little bits. So a bit of Jacobean, a little bit of cloth. If you see bits of wood wax there, I have been doing a little project behind your back. I'm sorry, I promise I'll share in the future, but I started making those before I started filming, so I didn't think you'd want to see half a project. So Jacobean. Now I know it's only a few filler holes, but really you don't want this stuff on your hands. I was entertaining wearing just one glove, but then I thought I know what I'll do. I'll pick it up, put my finger in the only lump of wax I've left behind, and then spend half an hour scrubbing it off. And that's not a good use of time. So once again the gloves go on, and then a little bit of cloth this time. We don't need much, because all we're doing is taking a little bit of wax and carefully swirly whirly going over the plug, and you can barely see it now, barely see it. So again, a little bit of wax rub-a-dub-dub, and rub-a-dub-dub. Let's wipe the edge in case it's gone over. There you go, barely visible. Again, it's good, isn't it? It's quite clever, really. I like it. I like how it just disappears. So this one, bit of wax again, bit of swirly whirly over the spot. This one is showing a bit more because I took a bit more of the wood off as well, but that's okay, that'll get sorted out when I put a second coat on. Swirly whirly again, take off the excess because I don't want it there. Don't need the excess there. So there you go, that's waxed. And then we can do the ends. So this is not a lengthy process because I'm only applying little touches of wax here and there. Can't even see where that one was actually. So lots of swirly whirly waxing and then up and down waxing because that's how we always finish off. So swirly whirly waxing, then up and down waxing, swirly whirly waxing. This one needs a little bit more. There we go. I actually noticed a little bit here that didn't fill properly, so I'll just do that now. Buff it up when I buff the rest up later. So that's that end done. And finally to this end. I'll wax on my cloth and a bit of swirly whirly. Bit of swirly whirly, wipe off excess, bit of swirly whirly, wipe off the excess again. There we go. Job's a good one. Now I will buff those again and wax them again, especially these ones on the top that show a little bit more. But basically that's it. That's the construction done with now. So I won't bother showing you the little bits of extra buffing and little bits of extra this and that because you don't want to see that. So it is finally time to fit the tiles. So I have the unit here, I have my tiles over here, and what I tend to do is I line up along the bottom first and I pick one from different pots. So I'll take one from one pot, then take one from another pot. What I'm trying to do is not have two similar colours next to each other, or two similar patterns next to each other, and also trying to have a good variety of colours and patterns because that's what makes these things so special. So this bit is a bit of trial and error. Sometimes you decide, oh, I don't want that there, I'd rather have it somewhere else. Sometimes you really like it where you've put it. It is very much a game of try it and see. One thing I do always try to make sure of is that I have no two tiles that are the same next to each other, or even no two tiles that are the same on the whole thing. So I always look along to see if I've used that tile before. If I have, then it goes back in the box and I don't use it this time. So good mix of the modern ones and the Victorian ones. and the sort of North American inspired ones. Just a lovely mix of tiles, that's what we need. As I say, never repeating, trial and error, suck it and see, that kind of thing. See if they look good together. I like that one, that's nice, and I haven't used it already. This one, that'll be good, haven't used that one yet. And then we'll go to this pot again, and we'll have, not yet, go to this pot, and, oh, I had a black one yet. No, I haven't. I'll use that and point it that way this time, just for a change. Then we'll have another one of these delicate lacy ones. Have I used this one before? No, I haven't. Now we need to get a bit of colour down this end. Now we've got quite a lot of white going on here, so a bit of colour can come in the form of that one. Haven't used it yet, so I can use that one. That's nice, that breaks it up. And then we'll have a modern one again, pointing a different way to the other modern one. And I've got space for one more. I think I'll use this nice plain green one, and it does just about fit. Remember, this was measured in the first place using the guide to fit an exact number of tiles. So there we have our tiles. They're looking good. I like the way they look. A little bit busy over here. Perhaps I might swap that one with that one, just to make it look a bit less busy over here. Yeah, that'll do nicely. Now, to stick them on, I use instant grab adhesive, because it grabs instantly, it gives a really good solid hold. So I'll put a little dot in the middle of where each tile is going to go, not too much or it oozes up the side. So a little dot where each tile is going. As I say, this stuff grabs instantly, and I have found that it does a really good job of holding the tiles in place. And of course the fact that the gap is very snug also helps enormously. There's no problem with putting lots of blobs down, because it's instant grab, not instant dry. So I put my screw back in my tube to stop it healing itself up, hang that back up there, and now we can get on with the sticking. This is just a case of take them from here and stick them in there, just a case, he says. Now sometimes they can be a little bit stubborn to go in, especially if the gap is really tight, which we know it is. So I'm going to use my special encourager. So rubber pads there so there's no damage, and then we just knock it down until it goes into place. Hopefully not all of them will be that stubborn, because we don't really want lots of stubbornness here. Leaves a little tiny scratch on the wood there, and I don't like that at all. But I'm sure these others will start to go in a bit more readily.
Absolute case of famous last words, that. They didn't go in readily at all. I think the problem was that we routed the groove in there to such a degree of precision that it didn't allow for any kind of error at all. If I'd routed the groove just a couple of millimeters wider, it would have fitted in beautifully. So what you see me having to do here is to use the encourager and to hammer every single tile into place. Now what that did is it created tiny marks on the underside of that shelf, visible, only just, but visible is visible, And so once I finish this bit, I then talk about having to fill those in with wax. I will have to show you on a future video how these tiles do normally just slot in perfectly normally, but this is not the one, I'm afraid. Yeah, I was really disappointed because I wanted to show you how the tiles just pop into place beautifully, and when the first one didn't and the second one didn't, I thought, oh no, we're in trouble here. But at least it gave me an opportunity to show you what can be done to repair any damage that happens when you're trying to persuade tiles.
Okay, next stage is going to be to, normally next stage would just be to put the hooks on, but of course this time I need to do a little bit of repair work along here. That will be fine, it wouldn't normally happen, but at least we know the tiles are very firm, and they do look delicious, don't they? They do just look amazing, the way they contrast with the wood. Gorgeous, love it. So next stage is to find some masking tape, which I believe is over here. There we go. As I say, this stage not normally required, just being a bit special because it's on camera. So line that up right to the edge. Right to the very edge of the tiles. That hasn't lined up to the edge particularly perfectly, so I'll put another piece on. Line that up with the edge of the tiles like so. Bring it along. Still left a tiny bit of tile exposed. Keep going. This is, I mean, even though this is not what normally happens, this is at least a sign of the care that I always put in. I do not accept anything other than fabulous. So, you know, it may have got knocked about a bit on its way to fabulous, but it will be fabulous. So just a little bit of tape there, right onto the edge of the tiles, so no wax will touch the tiles. I'm going to put a tiny bit just here as well on the bottom edge of the tiles, because there's a little bit of fixing needed there. So small you can actually barely see it, but I know it's there. So next will be a single glove for the wax. As I say, this is not a normal stage, this does not normally happen, so I'm going to have to show you another one of these sometime in the future to reassure you that it doesn't normally go like that. But you know, these things are made by hand, they are made individually, and sometimes errors are going to happen. So let's get the appropriate wax. I am only going to wear one glove for this, which I may regret. Jack a beer and just double check. Then make a finger pad. Get a bit of wax on the finger pad and then gently rub it up over here. There's no need to put a huge amount on at all. I'm going to flip it so I've got better access. again. A little bit of wax just on the edge there. Rub it along those areas that need it. So as I am hoping that, even though this was a very unexpected hitch, I'm hoping that at least it does show you that these things matter. Quality matters to me. I don't want people spending money on something that I've made by hand and then deciding they don't like my work. That's not useful at all. So we'll keep going. We'll keep rubbing the wax along the edge there. Where the tiny bits of damage are. We'll make sure the wax gets right down into every single chip that's been made. Even those ones that don't want to be filled in are going to get filled in. There you go. Just rubbing the wax deep into the cracks to make sure that we get the same finish all the way along. That is just essential. We have to get the same finish all the way along. A little bit, that's fine actually. It has taken the colour, it's just that there's a lighter stripe in the wood there. So now we've rubbed all the way along there. The moment of truth arrives. If you remember, we did cut that groove to a very fine tolerance. You know, perhaps it could even be something as simple as the thickness of the wax that I added on, although most of that rubbed in. But as we peel this back, dump that, and we can see when we turn it around and look at it, it looks absolutely fine now. Look along there, you don't see, maybe a tiny bit there, might do something about that, but on the whole you can't see any change in colour along there. It's absolutely fine. Now I do know that the customer would probably say, don't worry about it, it's okay. But the thing is, I do, and it isn't. Put another new glove on, get the lid off the wax. I'll use the same little bit of cloth because that was only used for a little bit of waxing. So we'll try and get a nice surface. I'm trying not to touch it with my ungloved hand. That should do us. A bit of wax, and then where was it? There it was. So I'm just going to rub along there. Whoops. A bit too far, but it hasn't touched the tiles. That's good. So along there, and then that's better. So to fit the hooks, I use these little screws. They are bronze screws. They are quite tiny, but they're long enough to give a good grip on the wood. I also use my bradawl to make the holes. I use this particular screwdriver because I find it works really well. Then I get my hooks. These are the hooks I use. Again, they're brass. 3, 4, 5 hooks on this one. I'll just get some more of those soon. And then a tape measure and a ruler. Now the ruler is not for the purpose you might expect. So the tape measure, first of all, runs along there. This length is just over 60, so I just nudge it so that we've got equal overhang on each end. There we go. And now the pegs go in at each 10. Move that away. So my first 10, I use the ruler like that. My first 10 is here. So I put it in line, nudge it down to the ruler. The ruler keeps it, makes sure that they've got equal overhang on the bottom. I then poke for my first hole, and I insert my first screw. Give it a little bit of a turn to get it started. Then we drive it in. Can't do this with an electric driver because it's just too delicate. So we drive the screw in. And because the brain notices patterns that you might not consciously notice, I make sure that the screw head is always left in a nice neat vertical horizontal position like that. So that is straight, it's right angled. I can poke my second screw hole right there. I can put in my screw and screw it in. Make sure it's good and tight, make sure it's left in that vertical and horizontal orientation, and there we go, first one is in. Next one will be at 20, of course. So we press the ruler, we use the tape measure to place it at 20, we use I to make sure it's vertical, make our first hole, place our little screw in the hole, give it a tiny turn, then use the driver to drive him down vertically. And then have that plus sign appearance. Then push in the bradawl for the second hole, like so. Get our screw, get our driver, and pop him in. As I say, making sure we finish with the screw in that plus sign orientation. And we just carry on. That's what we do.
Indeed it is, that's what we do. We carry on fitting the hooks onto the unit. It may seem a little bit obsessive, anal perhaps, to worry about the plus sign shape that the screw head makes. But the human brain is very good at spotting patterns, and it's very good at spotting when something isn't quite right. So just like I never use repeating patterns of tiles, because if I used a repeating pattern and something went wrong, you'd spot the problem, you'd spot where the pattern didn't carry on. And it's the same with the screws making the plus sign. I just like them to look the same, so that they're super neat, because you may not consciously notice them, but the brain is really good, as I say, at spotting patterns, at spotting things that aren't in place. I keep glancing back at the film and watching here, you see. So that's why I like to keep the screws in the plus sign. And that's all the screws fitted, all the pegs fitted now. So we can move on to the next stage. So now all the screws are in. Not the screws, well, the screws are in, I suppose. The pegs are all in now. So all we need to do now is put the fixings on the back. So, quite a heavy unit. So we're going to put the fixings on these edges here because they are the strongest part of the structure. I use these. These are basically these are 38mm mirror hanging brackets, which I've sprayed bronze on the facing side, and we're going to put these in place with 25mm screws, so they'll be really well held in place. I'm going to turn it to present the other way, just so that I've got it facing me instead of facing away. So I'm going to line these up with the centre on this line here. So that hole is level with that line. I shall then nudge the bracket over so that the shoulders are just about not showing. I then poke one hole there and one hole there, and I'll get my 4x, oh, that fell off and made me jump. Get my 20s, actually, not 4x25, sorry, 4x20s. 25 is a little excessive and carries a danger, it may split the wood, so we don't really want that. So I put that screw in, get it started, get my driver, which is here, line up that pilot hole there, and then screw it down. Like that. Then the second screw goes in. Like so. And then we do the same at the other end. Where's my bradawl gone? Where's my bradawl? There it is. So, line it up so the hole is level with that paste there. Make the shoulders just visible. And put a hole here. And a hole here. And we get a 4x20. And we carefully drive it in. You can tell by listening to the driver that it's really digging its way in there. Just straighten that up a little bit, like that. And then we take our second screw and we drive him in. There we go. So those two brackets will support the weight of the wall with some 40mm screws into the wall either side. It'll be absolutely fine. So next stage is the final bit, and this is really a courtesy. These little felt pads, if you feel here, the screws are slightly higher than the level of the brass. So what we do is we use these little sticky pads These are felt, so they will not scratch the wall, but I put those between the screws so that the felt pad hits the wall first. The screws don't get a chance to do damage to the wall. So another pad just there, and then I also like to put pads in the corners just to make sure we're not doing any damage to the wall when it's hung up. Now, I know I said no glue sticks to wax. I don't know what's on these, but it sticks quite well. It sticks very well, in fact. It probably helps that the wax has had a couple of days to finish going off properly. So that's there down the sides. I'm just going to put one extra one on the back of this piece, and then one more not that one, one more. There we go, that's come off much cleaner. One more down here, and that is done. All I need to do is give it a bit of a polish up, because it's got little bits, those little bits do come off, see, easy peasy. It has got little bits of sawdust stuck all over it, but those bits will come off. It will polish up beautifully. Of course, I need to buff along that edge there and a little bit along this edge where I put the extra wax, but that won't be a problem. So next shot you see of this will be the photo shoot, I suppose.
Thank you for joining me on this epic voyage of creating the coat rack with cubbies. It's now ready to go off to its owner, so I hope she really likes it. Next time we'll start a new project. I'm not sure what it'll be yet, but I'll come up with something. Have a good day. See you later.